Very excited to be here. How many of you have heard about CrewAI before? Raise of hands. Oh, damn. There was a point in time where I asked this question, no one would raise their hands, and that was not as impressive. So very excited to have you all here today. And when I was talking with folks from Ways and Biases, and by the way, I love you folks, amazing work. I was thinking about what should I talk or what should I share with that audience today? What would be relevant to them? And the more I think about it, the conclusion that I got is that right now there's so much hype, so much noise going on that probably more than talking about crew, I should just talk about what is real, right? What is real? What is in the market? What really works? And yes, we're going to talk about crew in the process, but uh, we're very uniquely positioned that we get quite some understanding about what people are actually doing, not only on open source, but also on enterprise and everything in between. And I think it's worth sharing some of that with you all between stories and use cases and anything. So for the people in the room that doesn't know CrewAI, I do want to catch you up real quick. And I like to start that with a number 60 million. That's how many AI agents we're running per month now with CrewAI. That is insane. I remember when I was celebrating 100K. It's like that was not too long ago. Feels like this number is doubling now every month, and it's absolutely insane. Not because of the number itself, because the number at the same time that it's big, it's also small. It's like so early in this industry, but I do find relevant to see the number growing and people using repeatable use cases, right? And you might be wondering, well, why CrewAI gets to power 60 million agents. And I think that it's not about the open source. I think we built an amazing open source framework, but I think it's more about the ecosystem. So, yes, if you haven't heard about CrewAI, there's an open source framework that goes by its name that we maintain. And you basically can build these agents, target for engineers and technical people. But it's extremely easy to use to the point that many people start to building with those. But then around that, we start to realize that people really want to get educated. It's a new kind of like systems, right? Going from building very strong typed and like systems like data coming in, the transformations, the data coming out. People just wanted to get educated on like, how do I do this? So we start doing courses. And those courses were like incredible. We did some with a couple with Andrew Yang. And I can't tell much publicly, but let me leave you that they performed well above the average, enough that we got Andrew to be an investor. Then we start to notice that people really want to highlight that they had the certification. So we start to do certifications, and there's thousands of people now that are doing that. And then with those certifications, then start to see job postings like Amazon, that there's literally has a job posting right now that is not mentioning frameworks in general. There's no other naming there. It's CrewAI. What is insane to me. And we're seeing 100% growth month over month on those kind of life of job openings. And what we keep doing is inviting people. We basically build a lot in the open and invite people to have those conversations to understand, hey, what is working? How is that gap from prototyping to production looking like for you? So for us, this is way more about not as much about creating a company, but way more about creating an industry. That's kind of like how we're looking into this. It's a brand new thing. So you get some of our stats. Developers in 150 countries, or focus commercially because we do have a commercial product. It's on Fortune 500, Global 2000 kind of companies. We have major partners and we do business with them. We just closed the DoD last week with IBM. What is insane. I mean, the fact that the US government's going to be using this now, it just blows my mind. But there you have it. So that has been very interesting for us overall. And there are many companies that are using CrewAI. So I could talk about PwC and their use case, but I'm going to skip that. We don't have enough time. And again, I'm not here to pitch you. You can read about it online. Or I can talk about Gelato, another company, more an SMB, very interesting as well, European company. Also, you can read about it online. I want to focus on the state of AI agents. Given everything that we're seeing, again, what it's real, what it's not, what it's noise. How's this going so far? You with me? All right, I'm going to try again. Are you with me? All right, there you go. I like it. So we're thinking about customers in 5 different levels, right? This is how we think about them. And I'm going to tell you, level 4 and 5, it's very aspirational now. We have some people starting on 4, but level 5, like that's not real just yet. Now, we do see many companies on level 2. A lot of companies, they're like, hey, I'm starting, I'm like on this prototype, I'm thinking about how I get things going. And companies on level 1, honestly, we can't engage them commercially. Like it's too much. A lot of people want to talk about AI agents, so that makes it a little hard. But we get to see them striving on the open source, and that is very interesting. Now, usually those companies go through the same process. They start with this kind of like discovery phase. And discovery phase is very exciting. It's like your teenage years on agents. It's like, oh, I'm trying to experiment everything, trying to get educated. And usually you come up with amazing technical questions. Memory, RAG, what open source tool should I use, graphs versus events, and that's fine. The problem is all that is table stakes. It's commodity. Yes, you're gonna need memory. So what? There's like 30 different ways you can do it now. But then companies go into this next phase where they're like, all right, I now realize we're going to be agentic native. Just a fancy way of saying like we're going to have hundreds, maybe thousands of agents running in production in X years' time. And once they get to there, then the questions become way more interesting. Because now, like, oh, I don't care as much about memory, but like, how I'm going to give it permission to that? Is that going to be code? How I'm going to maintain it? And what kind of tools I'm going to give access, and how I don't reuse those tools or reuse those agents. And what about governance? And then all those things start to pop up, and those are way more important questions. And that's kind of like when we came up with this idea that like, well, all right, companies will require an enterprise suite for their agentic resources. And we really thought about these words here. When I talk about a suite, we're talking about a stack of things. So it's not like one thing, it's a stack. And when we're talking about agentic resources, it's not only the agents themselves, it's their tools, authentications, authorizations, and everything in between. So we believe that stack starts all the way on the data management level, where you're going to have your Databricks, your Snowflake, your BigQuery, whatever it might be. And it works their way through LLMs, the orchestration, the memory, the authentication, the connectors, and all the way to agentic apps, where you have an actual UI where you can click and share those things internally and externally. But the three main things that every company cares about when we show this stack are always the same: interoperability, observability, and governance. And what I mean here is they want to be able to remove and switch things on that stack. I want to be use OpenAI today, but tomorrow I want to say F it. I want to use Claude for this use case. Or I'm going to be use CrewAI embedded memory, but then tomorrow I want to use Mem0. Or even authentication. I might want to plug in Okta at some point, or some other service that might come up. I think like a lot of these companies got kind of like burned on the transition to the cloud, and now they're stuck with these vendors and kind of like vendor locked. So this is very much top of mind on this transition as well. Now, what we are doing, and this is a little bit more technical. I don't usually show this slide, so I won't spend too much time on it. But this is more like our approach and what we have been building internally across the entire stack, and how we are imagining that stack and how we are helping customers with that stack. And I can show the product. The product is way more interesting than this. Now, another thing that we also have noticed is that LLMs were adopted on the edges. So someone in HR found out about this amazing prompt, they copy and paste it, and it works. And guess what? They tell nobody. And they just start using it. And then all the risks come with that, right? Now there's data leaking, there's like a lot of ad hoc use cases, there's like this inner circle that knows what they're doing. And then like companies start to block it, right? And now, oh, ChatGPT doesn't work anymore. And now you got to figure out like your own license. And then your company launches its own internal ChatGPT that doesn't really work. And you're like, oh, all right, I guess we're doing that. With agents, we're seeing a change. We're seeing more of a central deployment. So there's usually kind of like something under a CIO, a CTO, a CDIO, depends a lot on the company, but it's more of a central deployment. And within that central deployment, there's an element of like controlling the vendors that are being used, filtering PII and personal information, establishing guardrails, the connectors and everything. And then this team goes around and enables these other like departments on the edges, either technical or not, on using this agent. So very interesting shift from what kind of like we did, what we saw before with LLMs. Now, I want to talk about implementations for a second. Are you with me? I still think you can do better. Are you with me? Yes, there you go. So, implementations, you do can expect 80 to 90% efficiency gains. Don't start there though. You start more at 50, 60, and then you work your way from there. But we have a customer, and unfortunately, I can't disclose because NDAs, but I can tell you it's a Fortune 500, and I'm going to give you some tips. It's a CPG, and they have 630 different beverage brands that they own. So there's only a few there. And and they initially engage with us. They're like, hey, we have this one use case and they want to implement this. And it's like a price like ops use case. So we did it. And guess what? After a few weeks, when the first deploy was like 60% accuracy, not that good. And eventually, after a few weeks iterating, we got to 94% efficiency gains. So this is a way of some biases conference. So I want to be very clear about what efficiency and accuracy means. So efficiency here, I'm talking about literally how many hours they're spending before and how many hours they're spending now with humans on this. And with accuracy here, basically what we did was like running for a month, humans doing side by side with agents, what the end results look like. So it got to a point where now, like within those extra hours, they can bridge that gap of those 3%, and that justifies it. And from there, it exploded. So we start to do 3 more use cases. So they did a use case road mapping where we went to New York, brought a bunch of their executives. We roadmap a lot about what they would do. And then we got 5 new use cases deployed. And now it's like a global deal, multiple geos. And this is kind of like their usage on our platform and how that has been changing since we started working with them. And you can see number of executions and deployments and crews and everything that they're running there. It's very exciting to see, again, engagement happening. Now, in terms of the market out there is no clear winner on either verticals nor horizontals. What is frustrating for us as a business, but also very interesting, means that it's not like it's not like financials kind of like taking the lead. Yes, there's definitely a lot of financial companies doing it, but there's a lot of CPGs, there's a lot of telecoms, there's a lot of all different sorts of companies. And within those companies, it's not like everyone's doing the same. A lot of people are doing sales, a lot of people are doing marketing. There is some patterns. For example, companies seems to have more of a preference for back office use cases. I think it's just because like they don't have enough confidence on putting this in front of users necessarily from the get-go. So that's usually how they start. But it's kind of like what we're seeing out there. There's no like clear winner. For us, what that means is, well, it's a lot of like land and expand. You show up that you can do well in marketing. Well, within a few weeks, you're talking about doing well in HR, doing well in sales. So it's interesting, but it makes for very custom sales processes. What about pitfalls? And I'm going to ask you again. Are you with me? All right, you got this one. That's good. All right, pitfalls. There's usually 4 things that they're in one of like most of them are not technical. So one is they don't spend enough time planning their use cases. That's it. Like they don't plan it out, and that proves to be an issue. It's not even technical. It's usually a CEO or a board member pounding the table saying like agents today, yesterday, tomorrow, just get it done. And like they show up like just like, all right, let's do it, but they don't know what they're doing. Then the second one is, let's say they have a use cases, but they don't have a definition of success. What a success actually looks like, right? What you're optimizing for. The other thing is and this is a little more technical. It's like they don't break it into smaller chunks. Like this LLMs right now, like you give them work for them to do like an hour in a row, like that's not gonna work. You need to break this into smaller chunks so that they compound over one another. And then the final one is not measuring and evaluating. And don't get me wrong, I think like with LLMs, like the market already has some standards, right? People understand traces. People understand like how to say like, oh, this is a good example, this is a bad example, in kind of like evaluation sets and fine tuning sets. But what we're seeing with agents is that evaluators here are way, 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 way more custom. Meaning like if you're doing agents for lead scoring, honestly, evaluation here is scoring compared to closed won opportunities. That's how custom you should be on our evaluator, because that's how you would measure success if it was someone doing this. So these are some of the things that usually we see people kind of like falling short on. One thing that might be worth flagging is how people are thinking about these use cases. There's definitely like this component of complexity and precision. And an example of high complexity, high precision would be, for example, we're doing this one with like a big GSI that is automatically filling out IRS forms. You don't want to get them wrong. And they have 60 pages long, but fear not, they come with instruction manual with 720 pages. So like that is a very complex, but in a very high precision kind of like process or project. Now you can have high complexity, low precision, like we do with some educational companies, where educational content is something that you can generate and it's complex because you need to break it down on the right level. You need to customize it for the learner, but it's not precise. There's no right or wrong. I mean, you can touch people in so many different ways. It's more about consistency, and that's kind of like more high complexity but low precision. So you want to think about that when you're thinking about your use cases. For Crew, we have two flavors of kind of like agentic automation. One is Cruise. Most people know Cruise. Who know Cruise, by the way? All right. So there you go. So Cruise is where you're optimizing for agency. You're giving these agents tools, they're talking to each other, they're figuring out. As you're getting, what you're getting back is a lot of creativity, self healing. Like basically, the AI is controlling the flow of the application. And then the other one is flows. And flows are for the people that are trying to get more precision, right? They might want to have execute a code, do kind of like if this, then that. And it's all events based. So you can trigger things in parallel. There can be forks on the road. There's a lot of different things. And maybe there's a pocket of agency in there. And you can use that. So this is very interesting. This is a quick video on the enterprise platform if you're ever curious to check. So you can deploy these agents. There's a marketplace, many pre-built for you. You can actually build them with a UI, completely no code, and that exports to code if you want to. You can control like permissions. So even if they hallucinate, they will not be able to send an email on your behalf or anything like that. Once that you deploy them, you get to see executions and metrics, including hallucinations, course, and also zoom in on a few metrics. You can see things like quality, calculate ROI if you really go to the trouble of doing some setting up in there, scheduling, testing different models, train these agents to behave in a certain way, and there's just a lot going on in there. So I don't want to run you over everything, but it's pretty nice. It's pretty cool. It's basically what a lot of these enterprises are using once that they're trying to streamline agents deployments on their organizations. Now, I want to talk about 4 examples, use cases real quick, and we can leave it at that. And the idea here is just to get ideas flowing. So one is code automation. It's basically the initial use case for PwC. So they sell a lot of SAP and Salesforce upgrades projects, ABAP and Apex. And now most of that code is generated by CrewAI agents. And engineers join just later to kind of like string things together. Also very relevant for financial industries as well. The other one's contract analysis. Very interesting. See some traction on telecoms with them. The idea here is there's some tax optimizations that you can do on the agreement level, but they don't scale because you need a lot of lawyers. Well, if you power your lawyers with agents, now they can. The other one is customer support. It's kind of like a given. Everyone knows it, but you can get kind of crazy with it as you tap into a bunch of different like data sources. So also pretty good as well. In Agentic OCR. So Agentic OCR is basically like a OCR on steroids. So now you're not only doing the OCR, but you can use multimodal to extract even more information. And then on top of that, you can look at the historical data in order to delegate this. And then once that you classify and delegate, you might even take some actions on it depending on what it is. So very interesting use case as well. I have 3 minutes to go, what means that we might have time for one question or no question. No question. So I'm going to be around for a while. So if you want to talk, I'm going to be around there. Don't need to rush. I'm going to be around for a few hours. So you're still going to be able to find me a little later. But also, if you want to reach out, you can find me on Twitter at J-O, this is going to be hard, JOAOMDMOURA. Ask them and they're going to be able to hook you up and you're going to figure it out. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. Have a good one.